and we'll hope that camera angle's right and stuff and it's loud enough. And it's funny, I got all this gear. I got a SM7B mic and a Rode stand and a mixer and da 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 da. And I'm just like, yeah, I just want to talk. I don't give a fuck about production value at this particular moment. And good boy, maybe it'll get there, but you know, this buddy boy, he's a sleepy boy, aren't you? You're looking quite sleepy. Oh, in the mouth. You got me in the mouth, baby boy. In the jaws of death. And I'm like, okay. Yeah, I feel you. Yeah. Got a little good. It's the sigh, yawn thing. Um, but I guess just what I find interesting from my vantage point right now is every life requires sacrifice. Like I've sacrificed a certain kind of conventionality and I've gotten a really cool adventure from that, but I'm paying a price for that too. And I have friends or know people that like paid serious dues in like jobs where honestly, I guess theoretically I could have done it, but like I would watch them do it and be like, I don't think I can fucking do this. Just the consistency and the grind and the focus and the prolonged, come on, man, good boy, and the prolonged sort of like execution and just not straying from the path. I just look at it and I'm like, damn, it's like to be a doctor or a lawyer or something, or, to raise money for a fund or all these things where it's just like, fuck, they stayed with it, and everything's hard. There's that Jethro Tull song, Nothing's Easy. Everything's fucking hard, man. It's like, you know, just to learn how to use the like propane system on this fucking trailers, like, things that a million people do every day without second thought. You're like, oh shit, hold on, like, what do I do? Like, oh shit, that doesn't smell good. Oh fuck, like everyone get out of the fucking trailer. It's just like, you pass propane stores and a million RVs with the tanks in the front. You don't even think anything of it. And then you try to do it and you're like, oh fuck. And a wise man, once told me that he's like, I'm only good at two or three things, and I just like pay somebody to do everything else. And I get that. There's something to that. What I mean? I know geniuses that, like even interacting with like normal email systems that aren't familiar to them, they're just like, what the fuck? And I've really broadened my sense of, intelligence, and there's just so many forms of it, and it's, and then like, what do you even weigh any of that versus like perseverance and stuff? And it's so funny. It's like I find myself getting really frustrated when I can't kind of like make myself be a certain way, and I don't have like a ton of willpower. And again, I'm not really good at faking it. And so if I try to lead any life that's not real to me, which I know sounds like pretty kind of, it could sound entitled or spoiled. I don't know. I guess it's eye of the beholder. But it's just like if I go like even 1 degree off that path, I'm just fucking sunk. And yet when I sort of take my hand off the wheel and be like, all right, take me where I need to go. Like I'll just accept that this is not a traditional life. I don't have a wife and kids. I don't even have like a career per se, if I make like a resume or something, it's just like, what the fuck? I've got some friends who are like, dude, you've had so many lives or something. And, it's probably like a more diplomatic or flattering way to put it. But it's true to some extent, which is great. But it's also like, it's a little hack. I'm like a Renaissance man. It's like, oh, you never committed to anything? It's like, yeah, well, sort of, you're not wrong. pretty humbling. And so to be at this vantage point now and try to just figure out what to do with it. And I was like, all right, well, step one is at least I can just start sharing honestly, And maybe it'll resonate. Maybe somebody will watch this and say like, "Holy fuck, I don't." I mean, I certainly remember I lived out in LA for a bit, and I would meet people who were like 65 years old and had like been in the business, but like kind of, and I'd be like, "Ooh, this does not look good." And I mean, somebody could think that about me. I'm in a fucking travel trailer in the middle of fucking nowhere on the land of the one-eyed Seventh-day Adventist, who's the sweetest lady, God fearing. She's fire and brimstone for sure, but seemed to get a kick out of me. But whatever. But it's just, these choices and the way it all unfolds. It's just so funny. And I look back on myself as a kid doing like little Michael Jackson dance routines and learning Alice in Chains on guitar or whatever, and doing little comedy mixtapes with my buddy and stuff. And I think the seeds of who I like wanted to be, this like kind of multi-discipline or whatever creator, somewhere in between silly and like a seeker. I was also the same kid like reading Stephen King when I was like 8 years old or something. I read The Dark Half when I'm 9, just probably because of emotional difficulties in the family household or whatever. I think I wet the bed before I read those. I think I read those because I wet the bed. Probably normally the other way around, but God, that was so embarrassing. I remember I was wetting the bed to the extent that we bought like a little buzzer thing that like went off if I was starting to like piss. My honest take, and this is pretty sad, is that I was like such a sensitive little kid that to be in the house of like unhealed Vietnam vet and like a mother who had come from her things, and the marriage wasn't good and neither of them were good. And I really do think they were trying, but it was, I think certain kids are just all kids are sensitive and soak up energy. I'm not trying to pedestal myself, but I truly do think that I was like absorbing just like terror around, like I knew something was wrong. And it's funny because like Stephen King or some of the movies I saw like pretty young, I think they would have traumatized like a lot of kids. But I think for me, they actually were like, oh, I'm like already traumatized. I'm going to make sure this is still. I'm like already traumatized. And these are like helping me understand like darker energies of life. My grade school was much more kumbaya, kind of hippie shit, which is fine, but I wasn't, I was going home to like a guy cleaning his AK-47 and an emotionally distant mom who, and like, oh, where do you even, so, yeah, man, it's funny how it goes. But I will say it's like, in any given moment, it's so easy to plan or to imagine the things that like I've pictured so many things like, oh, if I had this place or if I had this situation or something, and like certainly there I've like gotten things, opportunities or whatever experiences, and they give you a high, but nothing ever lasts. And the only relationship that you truly need to figure out is the one with yourself. That's literally who you're. Talk about being married. You're literally married to yourself, like all day, every day. To be your own friend, to be your own like mentor, to be encouraging to yourself, to learn to like accept difficult feelings. This is a true life's work, and you can read a million books, and I've had great insight from past thinkers and therapists and spiritual leaders and hallucinations, from ayahuasca and mushrooms and stuff. I mean, I'm a seeker, I'm a student of many of these things. But it really does seem like, like like you think of like a Robin Williams, somebody who like gives and gives and gives, and it's like so good. And so many of the comedians I love that were like hurting inside and like did their best to just like give, give, give. And I so respect that, and I so appreciate that, and they've so enhanced my life. And at this point, it really just seems like I'm really just learning to accept the ways that I see the world, the ways in which that I operate, the ways in which I kind of don't fit with convention, the unconventional thoughts I have, just like appreciation of things that might not be like understood by kind of mainstream society. And maybe I'll get more into those things as if this is something that continues. Who fucking knows? Another thing I'm sort of starting to realize is like in any given moment, all you can do is play the hand you're dealt. There was one night where I was in West Texas and a fucking like, I don't know if it was like a squall. I don't know if that's like a term in Texas or if that's from growing up on the ocean, but like I thought I had patched up the roof and I hadn't done it right, and water was pouring in, and I was on the roof in a fucking bathrobe, freezing, trying to tarp it, but it was puddling and the roof was caving in, and it was like in that moment all I could do was just deal with that situation. Nothing else mattered. And it was brutal, and I'll never forget, like, there was a point where I did everything I could, and it was just drip 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 right in the fucking like AC tray there, and right down into a trash can I had. And I couldn't sleep because it was like Chinese fucking water torture listening to it, and just knowing that it was like ruining the inside of the fucking travel trailer, and I wasn't even that far into the journey. And you're just like, that's all I could do was just deal with that, with what I had that night. And it seems like, oh, it's like kind of a fun story now. But in that moment, it was like, on this like ladder and like shivering. And I, like, am I going to fall off? And the dog's just looking at me like, what the fuck is this guy doing? I'll pause here.